Have the roll call, please. Here? Here.
Here. Here.
And we have an amended agenda. Oh, okay. So can we have approval for the amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, so moved. And now we have a presentation, the preschool feasibility study.
Yes, and I think we have Dan Gaffney here tonight. So, Dan, welcome back. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me back, and I'm pleased to be able to come back and tell you some of the things we've been up to. You have a handout that's been distributed to you that I'll go over, but I wanted to give you something that you could reference now and in the future, and if you have any questions now or in the future, don't hesitate to let me know, okay? Last time I was in front of you, be able to talk with you, was the middle of June. Since that time, we have followed up on the contract that was awarded to Social Finance. They're a nonprofit organization that serves as our intermediary. We'd already obtained the services of Sorensen Impact Center through another grant that provides us with 3 data scientists from the University of Utah, and they are helping us clarify what we have in place and what is possible once we gather that data, and they are helping us with that as well. I assembled an advisory committee that's made up of 16 different people from both Clatsop and Tillamook County, representing the various entities that we feel are impacted by the potential expansion of preschool. We have a smaller group, a steering committee, made up of some of the same folks on the advisory committee. The difference between the two is the steering committee folks have committed more time to help us in making some decisions and going from there. The advisory committee offered me an hour a month, and the steering committee is providing more time than that. And then we have our work group, which is 5 people that are working closely with Social Finance and Sorensen Impact Center, and those folks that we're connecting with to help determine what's feasible. And those 5 are Tara Mestrich, who has been working for 9 years with all the licensed child care and preschools. She's with Child Care Resource and Referral.
Excuse me, what was her name again?
Tara Mestrich.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Sydney Van Duzen, who's with Way to Wellville and previously was with Providence Seaside Hospital. Tracy Osborne is an assistant we've been able to hire with the grant. She serves as a community resource liaison. It helps me with gathering further information from our community. And then Maria Stark, who's our National Wellville supporter, and myself. We have also, I think, had a good reaction and follow-through response with many of our preschool providers, and I'll talk a little bit more of that a little bit, as well as with the 8 school district superintendents and many of their principals. Northwest Regional ESD has been involved in helping us determine how to access some of the data that we're after, as well as technical support. And of course, being the grantor, the U.S. Department of Education has continued to work with us, offering guidance in terms of financial and procedural support, as well as they've been able to make some connections for us or make recommendations for connections within Oregon. Oregon's new Early Learning Division Director happens to be a close professional friend and personal friend with one of the 2 people we connect with at the U.S. Department of Ed on a regular basis. And then they've also given us people to talk to that have been involved in Oregon's race to the top application and grant.
Someone in the U.S. Department of Education's personal friends of somebody here locally, or what do you?
Yeah. Oregon has just named a new director for the Early Learning Division. And they have been professional colleagues and continued that friendship beyond. Interestingly, when Oregon just published this document, which is the guidelines for preschool and kindergarten standards that have been bridged together, our new director was one of the co-authors, and this has been in the works for a couple of years. So
When you say our new director, you're talking about Oregon's new director or your new director? for
Oregon's
this?
new director.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then we've, I think last time I was in front of you, I told you we had a trip to Washington DC in the works, and that was being made available through the Urban Institute, which is a Washington DC based organization that focuses on economic and social policy research. They're an amazing organization that brings together kind of, you might think of them as a think tank, but they're bringing together all sorts of other resources. And what they did is they helped us get to know the other 7 grantees, invited us all back there, helped with some of the financial expenses. And then they booked our time to precede a Pay for Success symposium that was held basically in the same location. So lots of opportunity to learn more about what we were involved with. Some of the activities.
Excuse me, sorry, I
Yes.
have a question. So they were helping you with the Pay for Success program. In what way were they helping you
Helping us
that way?
learn more about what goes into a Pay for Success project. And
Meaning the partnership with private entities, a public-private?
they didn't deal too much with that. It was more the preliminary steps like the feasibility study, and then determining if we're going to move on from there. If we choose to move on from there, forming new partnerships, like with an evaluator that would be involved in watching to see that if the decision is made to move towards implementation, that there's someone there that's, if you will, nonpartisan, that would be monitoring the results to see that they're accurate and reported properly to the investors and the payers. So again, it's every time it seems like every week I'm learning more and more, and it's fascinating. And yet what we're focused on is not the funding, not the implementation, but what's feasible, what's possible, and what do we have in place right now. So.
But this trip to Washington DC, that was a component of what you were learning about, is how to
Yeah,
implement that.
Yeah.
And that was paid for by the Urban Institute?
The majority of it was, yeah. Part of our expenses, because we had the distance from Oregon to Washington DC, were paid for by our grant, and that was already there were budget dollars for travel that were in there, and so.
Is there any money that goes back to, like the school districts and the Northwest Regional Educational Service that are helping you?
Not
get
at
the
this
data?
point in time.
But I mean, their staff is working for you also, right?
They are helping me in gathering the data, and that was part of their offer and commitment when we submitted the application, was that they would help us in gathering data.
Right, because that was one of my questions, is that if their time was going to be paid for at all with the grant. And so what you're saying is no.
At this point in time, no. Some of the activities we've been involved with is meeting with, we put out invitations to the early childhood educators that we have contact with. We had a dinner meeting in which we were able to talk with them about what's the study involved and why are we doing it, and emphasize that what we're after is to add to the services that are already within the communities, and to issue an invitation that if this is interesting to you, please join us and continue to be a part of as we examine what's in place and what's possible. We provided a survey that was put together by our staff and also with the help of the Sorensen Impact Center folks. And that helped us in gathering more information about what's currently in place. And then there were some follow-up visits because obviously we didn't get everybody. We didn't pick the perfect night for everybody. So there are some that have taken place and there are others that have been planned to continue visitations to the current preschool providers in both counties.
My supposition, and please let me know if I'm correct or not, is that you're developing relationships and networks so that there's a continued flow of information and support that comes in that will enrich our children. Is that an accurate perception?
I would very much agree, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've also had individual meetings with superintendents and principals, as well as some small group meetings, just to, again, make sure that they know what this is about and how we need their help in putting together this package of information that really is for them. That's really the key piece there is emphasizing that no decisions are being made beyond doing a study, seeing what's in place, and then we'll do some work to be able to present to them information that they wouldn't necessarily have time to put together. And so anyhow, again, like you, they have questions, and so that's why we've had not just a small group, but also the individual meetings to make sure that is clear and to clarify the data that we're after. And with that, we want to make sure that there's never any question about maintaining confidentiality. And so that's a very significant piece of the work that we're doing with Sorensen Impact Center, with social finance, with the school districts, with the ESD, and any other entity in which we would be requesting data. Because again, we want to make sure that we do this absolutely right and legal, and yet what we're after, and I'll just say that one of the superintendents has said repeatedly, he's very excited to see what comes of this because we're doing a combination of data that they've never had combined before. And so they want to see what we have to learn and share. Whether we move on beyond this feasibility study or not, we're going to gain a lot of information. And that's what that superintendent sees, and I think he's not the only one.
Excuse me. So you mentioned confidentiality.
Uh-huh.
Could you please go over that again?
Sure.
In what regard is this information to be confidential?
Well, part of what I'll use the preschool providers as an example. If there's information that is out there that would help us in assessing what's in place now in terms of, a lot of it is public record in terms of how many students can they serve, but in terms of what their costs are and how that works, again, that's part of what we're trying to do is determine a cost for current services. What's the current landscape in preschools? What's the current landscape in terms of how children are doing in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade? And what's the cost of that? So we go through and analyze the school district budgets. And if there's information out there that we can use to say, and I think you probably remember that part of our desire in this application was to see if we can provide free preschool to kids at 300% of the poverty level and below, or if they're learning English as a second language. Well, income is a confidential piece of information. And so if we were to seek that, then we would need to make sure that there's absolute strict confidentiality maintained and that data is as secure as it possibly can be. So that's what's nice about having people like Sorensen Impact Center and Social Finance, because they've dealt with this kind of stuff before.
Thank you.
And I guess the other piece is that, we are seeking information from various sources that, as I said, the one superintendent said, we've never tried to pull all this together. We don't have the staff time to be able to pull all this together. So thank you for doing this for us, because we're going to have information in front of us that's going to help us.
So the confidentiality piece is the income that people are earning that shows what the need is.
That would be one example, a pretty significant example, yeah. There may be other things that are not coming to mind right now, but,
Okay,
okay?
thanks.
Yep. So with our data collection, as I've already mentioned, we're looking at what are the current preschool opportunities, the staffing, the costs, how many, are they full? One of the things we know is not only is there a shortage of preschool opportunities, but there's a shortage of childcare. And as businesses are trying to balance their books and pay their staff, they have to balance that too, because, you know, different income from different kinds of services. Our current school and student performance, and then the costs of the various intervention plans, such as special ed, Title I, ELL, additional counseling, those kinds of things. We're trying to, we will go through and we'll determine estimated costs for expansion, such as, do we need more space? What's that going to cost? Do we need to remodel that? What's the cost of staff? What's their current pay rate versus what would be a pay rate that we feel is more appropriate to maintain consistent and high quality staff? And then professional education for those to get to the level that we want, as well as to maintain their ongoing professional development. Transportation is a huge piece. And so we're looking at how do the regulations vary for preschool as opposed to K-12, and there are very significant differences. And what's the cost of addressing those and making sure we follow those? What's the availability of buses and bus drivers? The locations of the preschools obviously make a difference, as well as the location of the children. So this is a massive amount of information that we're trying to take on and gather and be able to present. And then we've got folks from social finance that have done the deep dive into the current literature about quality research on high quality preschools and what characteristics are most effective and which of those are replicable in our kind of setting.
Who is it that's doing that?
We've got some folks with social finance that are doing that for us, and then they share
What
that.
does social finance mean?
Social finance is the intermediary that we hired.
That's the one that the bulk of the 350,000 is going to that company, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. They have a team of 4 people that are working with us, and one is one who loves to or has the skills, not only just loves it, but also has the skills to do that kind of research.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we selected them. That's why you selected them. I recommended them. So, we are facing some challenges as well, you know, and I want to be upfront about that. You know, we've got the timing of this, you know, as we went into, once we got everybody hired, then it was a matter of how can we connect with, you know, the preschool providers and the school district folks, and that's happening during the summer. And so that slowed us down a bit. The state chose to make some changes in their expectations for child care resource referral across the state. The groupings of what counties were covered by separate contracts was changed to align better with the same counties that their early learning hubs serve. So in our case, our early learning hub is Columbia, Clatsop, and Tillamook County. The CCR was Clatsop, Tillamook, and Lincoln County. And so those things didn't align well, and that's one example across the state. There were others. And so they made that change, and then they put out to bid who wanted to carry that contract, to be responsible for that. Currently, Oregon State University has been that contractor. They chose not to submit. Northwest Regional ESG chose to submit, and so there's some changes there, and we go from there.
So you said OSU
Is choosing not to continue
they're
to
involved in
be-
the early childhood learning hub, but they're not involved in this study? I didn't
No.
understand that.
Oregon State University, for the last few years, has held the contract to provide child care resource and referral services for Clatsop, Tillamook, and Lincoln counties. They've chosen not to continue to provide that service. They did not apply to the state to be the CCR and our service provider.
Who's taking up the slack?
Northwest Regional ESD applied to be that contract holder, and they received the contract.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. The data, accessing that confidentiality and making sure that we maintain that confidentiality and the combination of that we want to be able to pull together, that's a challenge. And as I'm dealing with this, I shared the quote from long ago Secretary of Education Margaret Spelling in terms of the importance of data, and she says, "In God we trust, but everybody else needs data." And so that's again what we're after in doing this, is we want to have solid data to be able to put in front of people so they can make a good decision. There's been appropriate caution on the part of schools and the ESD and state agencies when we come to them and say, we want this kind of data, we're doing this feasibility study. And so then it's back up, explain to them what it's all about, and help them go through their reflection process, make sure we answer their questions. And so, again, that's taken time. So that's a piece that we're looking at. But one of the things that's been pretty exciting that's come about as of late is that as we look at, and I think particularly if you talk with the superintendents of Clatsop County, you'll hear that there's a great deal of mobility of students, that they don't start kindergarten in one district and finish high school in that district. There's a lot of mobility.
A lot of poverty.
That is probably a significant factor. My experience would be, yes, finding the job, where are the jobs, are there jobs? Jobs come and go, particularly in a tourist environment.
Housing.
Housing, you bet. So mobility is a big factor, and that's one of the things that some of the superintendents in particular have said we're interested in. And one of the advantages of being able to get information from all these different entities and put it together is that we can have a pretty good chance of zeroing in on that mobility and getting records to align and go from there. So that's a plus that comes from them sharing, entering into confidentiality agreements and sharing that confidential information. We've had some pretty interesting folks expressed interest and enter into discussions. We had the opportunity to talk with the Astoria Rotary, the Seaside Downtown Development Association, Northwest Early Learning Hub has wanted to know more details, as has Columbia Pacific CCO. Both are dealing with the same 3 counties. Both are serving both Clatsop and Tillamook County. Clatsop Community College has expressed interest in knowing a little bit more about what we're hoping to do, and that's a good thing because we definitely want to be able to offer professional development, educational opportunities here. The Early Learning Division is actually coming to do a little visitation in a week or two, and so that brings statewide interest to Northwest Oregon. The Oregon Community Foundation has been the funder for our P3 alignment work over the last 3 years and continues to do that in the current 4th year. But they've expressed interest, as has Care Oregon, insurance company that serves as our CCO. We've also had discussions with OHSU, their Center for Evidence-Based Policy. They have been involved for a number of years in trying to pull together data from various sources that typically have not shared data. And so we talked with them about how do you go about it, and what were you able to do, and who did you talk to? And so they're quite interested in what we do as well.
Dan, excuse me.
Please.
Have the Ford Family Foundation, have you approached them at all?
Actually, now that you say that, I did have a meeting with one of their vice presidents a couple months ago. Yeah. University of UCal Berkeley, there was a gentleman that was involved in the Way to Wellville National Gathering that took place here in April. He heard about our project, and a couple months later he contacted and saying, I have a student who would like to do some internship work. So again, it's pretty intriguing. And then we've had visitation from one of the vice presidents of Microsoft. The key thing is this whole feasibility study provides us with opportunities. We have the opportunity to showcase and show the warts of Clatsop and Tillamook County in terms of early childhood education. We've got the Division of Early Childhood. The national conference is happening in Portland in next month. And we've been invited to be a part of a panel presentation to talk about, how does this work and what are we learning as we go through it, knowing that we don't have all the answers, but we got a few answers. We've got the visitation by the U.S. Department of Ed, one of the people that we work with on a monthly basis, as well as I already mentioned, Oregon's Early Learning Division Director, and possibly Oregon's Education Innovation Officer. Again, we've had other connections. There's an organization that, or a program that got started in Connecticut, and it's starting to go nationwide. There's a small network in Portland with this program called Help Me Grow, which is a cross-sector collaboration to bringing people together to build an efficient and effective early childhood system that in particular is aimed at easing the impact on childhood adversity. And so again, because we're dealing with early children, the early ages of children, we're making these connections that I think will benefit our community. And then we've been asked to participate in a study by Oregon Pediatric Improvement Partnership, which is just getting started. It's a 2-year study, and they're looking to improve connections between developmental screenings and the follow-up services. But the bottom line is, and to me the most important thing is, we're developing those relationships between early childhood providers, K-12 schools, parents, the social and healthcare providers, and the communities by working together to collectively improve our future. So that's what keeps me going. It is a challenge, I kid you not, but I think it'll be well worth it when we get all this information in front of us, and hopefully that'll help us in making better decisions.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's wonderful that there is so much interest in early childhood education. It certainly is an important issue, and I think there must be, well, can you tell me what their interest was?
They came down from Seattle to visit Clatsop County and hear about some of the different things that Way to Wellville and other organizations were involved with. Just kind of looking to see what they might get involved in the future, because again, they do investments as well. So it was just kind of an initial introduction. Hey, what are you guys up to? And tell me more. And so we did.
Also, I don't know, I think I did bring this up at one point, that the military has considered considerably the best preschool program in the nation for the families who are on the bases or overseas. And is it possible to find out what makes them such high quality?
I think when we get into really putting together the plan that we want for Clatsop County, that would definitely be a piece that we want to take a look at.
Okay.
I also have a meeting scheduled, I think it's in 2 weeks, with our local Coast Guard liaison, who says that the new commander based in Seattle is very, very interested in making sure that quality education is available for our earliest children. So
Okay.
there's another opportunity. We'll see what happens.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate you giving us this information.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, do we have any, now's the time for business from the public? And what am I supposed to say about that? Oh, yes. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 3-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings, which we are going to have later, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. People wishing to speak during business from the public must fill out and sign a public comment sign-in card. Okay, so we have 2. And Bonnie starts with a B. Bunker. Okay. Welcome. So this is not about the public hearing.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. My husband and I own the house next to 80289 Pacific Road, Arch Cape. And in 2014, we had a $90,000 renovation done, $28,000 of that for leveling the south end of the house. Had we not had the house leveled at that time, we would have a major concern upon finding the lot south of us cleared and dug down several feet. The foundation of this new construction is exactly 10 foot 4 inches from our foundation. Why were we not notified? Was this land surveyed to know the property lines? Ordinance 1702 was, quote, designed to increase awareness of what is going on in your neighborhood and provide additional opportunities for people to be engaged in the process, as stated by City Council Chris Crean. How are we to be made aware of these things? We were never notified. We had no prior knowledge of this new construction. So that was my concern.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Linda Ironman and Bill Gaylord.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I am here to address the issue that Mrs. Bunger addressed in part. The letter that was sent to each of you last week by Arch Cape residents, Arch Cape neighbors, of which we and the Bungers are part of, and also a letter that was sent to each of you this week by the Arch Cape Falcon Cove Beach Community Club, which functions as our neighborhood association, and also a response letter from County Manager Moore, which opened the door to working together on our issue, which I do very much appreciate. The issue is we are no longer receiving notice of type 1 residential development in Arch Cape, basically single-family home construction, which is really pretty much all of the construction that there is in Arch Cape. We're not getting notice to the surrounding neighbors or to the neighborhood association. And this is something that under the ordinances that were just recently repealed, we always got for many decades, and now it's gone. And while we understood that the new ordinance, 1702, took away local design review, that would now be done by staff or by the Planning Commission, we did not understand that Ordinance 1702 also took away our right to know what was changing in our community, our right to notice, and our right to question and comment. So in effect, what's happened is we now have this suddenly secret process, which when a crew arrived at a lot next door to the Bungers and across from us in July and announced they were going to cut down all the trees, I went out and said, you can't do that without a permit in Arch Cape. And it turned out there was a permit for a new single-family home approved, and none of us knew anything about it. So there isn't even anything on the website that we can look to search out the information. And this is not the process that we understood from the comments made by County Council at the meetings when Ordinance 1702 was discussed. He represented that this was designed to increase public awareness on what was going on in our neighborhoods and to provide additional opportunities for people to be engaged in the process. So that's not how it's functioning at all. So I understand that your goal was uniformity across the county, but I have to say one size doesn't necessarily fit all. And Arch Cape's always been unique. Nowhere else in the county have we had a citizens advisory committee that lasted for 35, 40 years. And we do want to continue to be engaged in the land use process. So I just want to be clear. I know I'm over my time. May it be extended, please?
Okay.
I just want to be clear what we want. Mr. Moore has said in his response letter that we could propose amendments for our Arch Cape rural community zone, and we can do that. I don't know the process, but I'm sure he can advise us. But the legislative process is slow, and we really need help right now in order to preserve the livability of our rural community.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry.
I think you've had more than 4 minutes, I believe.
Okay. I have two specific requests.
I think it's good to
Too late.
address them to the county manager. I think he can help you.
Okay.
You said you can address them to the manager.
Do I?
You can tell you. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to follow up with you at some point and
All right.
hear what your specific
Well, I
requests
think
are.
you
and
understand
see how
our
we can help.
issue. I appreciate your time, and I hope that we can work together.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Okay, we need a, oh, okay. Okay, so this is you? Yes. Okay, so Philip Maspon, okay? You have 3 minutes.
Okay, it's about the vacation rentals. Is this when I should be talking?
That's during the public hearing.
Oh, okay,
And so
then
you can
not
speak
now.
during that time.
Oh, okay, this is
So
after
you didn't need to
this.
fill this out. All right, thank you.
That's tonight,
Yes. All right, do we need a motion for
Moved.
the consent calendar?
So moved.
We need a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, and we have a second?
Second.
And what do we do? Sorry. And all those in favor?
Aye.
And those against? Okay. All right, now we have public hearings. The first one is transfer of property to the city of Seaside. May we have the staff report?
Vice Chair Nebiger and members of the board, I am here to ask for your board to hold a public hearing on the transfer of property to the city of Seaside and take comment on it. Clatsop County came into title of this Tract A at the Heights at Thompson Falls in October of 2016. There were tracts A, B, and C that were intended as conservation and tracts, and they have an easement to the city of Seaside across the entirety, and it is for access maintenance and improvements to the utilities, public roadways, and stormwater system constructed as part of the development. It is 2.78 acres. It is between two partially developed subdivisions at Thompson Falls, and zoning is low-density residential with a landslide topography. And this parcel was categorized for other government pursuant to our policy. And the qualifying other governments are the City of Seaside, North Coast Land Conservancy, or the Thompson Falls Homeowners Association, which has had an administrative dissolution. And this public hearing was noticed in the Daily Historian twice for 2 successive weeks. And so now I'm asking your board to conduct the public hearing.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest to report regarding this matter?
No.
Okay. I will open the public hearing. If you wish to testify, come forward and give your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. All right. There's no testimony, so I will close the public hearing. Is there a discussion?
No other use for it, might as well.
Would someone like to make a motion? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to transfer the property to the city of Seaside and authorize the chair to sign the deed.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, so moved. Thank you. Okay, now we have Ordinance 17-03 regulating short-term rentals. This is the time set for a public hearing on this ordinance regulating short-term rentals. May we have the staff report, please?
This is a topic that came up some time ago. I think we've had at least one work session with the commissioners about trying to ensure that people that are paying for a vacation rental in Clatsop County can be in a safe, healthy environment. And, we realize that we really don't always know about these things, and oftentimes they're not inspected. We've had complaints, and at least one fire, one that did burn down. And so this is really an attempt to put some rules in place, not to regulate the number, that type of thing, but to ensure that if someone's going to come here and rent, that it's been, recently. When I say recently, we're proposing once every 5 years that they would be inspected to meet, again, basic building codes, basic health, safety standards, and that way people renting them, would know that they're putting them or their family in a healthy and safe environment. So that's really what we have. So.
Thank you. May we have the first reading by short title only?
Ordinance number 2017-03, an ordinance regulating short-term rentals.
Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest to report?
Let me just say that I have been, I live in the south part of the county in a beautiful area. I've been approached by people who would seek to rent my house. I'm not interested in doing that, but I just want that on the record. I don't have any conflict. I'm not going to do that. But
Doesn't sound like it. Okay. All right, I will open the public hearing. If you wish to testify, come forward and give your name and your address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Is that right now? All right.
Yes.
My name is Phil Massavo. I have a short-term rental, and I've had it for about 12 years in Surf Pines. First, I'd like to say the money that comes into the county from short-term rentals is huge. I don't know what the numbers are. Personally, I'll be paying about $2,000 this month for this last quarter that went through. I have one of the cheapest rentals in the county, so I have no idea what the big dollar places in Cannon Beach are paying for room tax. I'm not sure where all the money for the county comes from, but it seems to me it comes from homeowners and it comes from room tax. Otherwise, we have business licenses. I'm not sure where else, we get money from. It seems like most of it is homeowners and room tax. I feel like the future of Clatsop County, and I have for many, many years, is tourism. We can all look at the tourists that came this year. We want them to go home, of course, but in any case, that is our future. I feel like when the fish are gone and the trees are gone, we won't have any trees back for 40 years. So if we want to keep our money going, we have to think in terms of tourism. I know regulating short-term rentals, there is a danger, I guess, to the public, whatever like that. But as a body, we don't regulate rentals in general. No one else gets inspected to see if their rental is up to par for anybody who rents it. To single out short-term rentals and say, oh, well, we want to make sure that these are safe, it seems like it's not really right. If you're going to inspect everybody's homes for safety, you need to go inspect everybody's homes, not just short-term rentals. As far as a permitting process, I feel like I've been doing it for 12 years. The law says that I can do it. I have the right to do it. If you want to issue me a permit, it means that you just took my right away and then gave me permission to do it. That's just my thoughts on it. I just want to, every community, I don't know if I use my 3 minutes here, but every community right now is trying to ban short-term rentals or cut them down, or I don't quite understand it because, like I say, the cash flow is definitely coming from the short-term rentals. Also, I wanted to say, as far as the safety issue, inspections, all the websites that rent to people have reviews. And those reviews reflect what your place looks like, what it's like, everything about it. If your place is not safe, it comes out in a review right away. And none of us want bad reviews. So I'm just saying it kind of regulates itself on that level. And thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for being a good taxpayer.
Yeah, that would be good.
Brian Olson, I reside at 34135 West Campbell Loop Road in Seaside, and I am the owner of Beachcomber Vacation Homes in Cannon Beach. We currently manage 5 properties that reside in the county. I applaud the county commissioners for this ordinance. We do need safety rules, and I think basic safety, egress, smoke alarms, CO detectors is the way to go. So we are, as a management company, in support of this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Kate Allen. I reside at 318 Lincoln Street here in Astoria. As the summary for the ordinance states, over the last 2 decades, there's been tremendous use in the vacation rentals. This corresponds at the same time with an increasing need for affordable long-term rentals in the county and certainly in the city here. To meet the need for available housing to serve exactly those Clatsop County residents who are fueling our growing tourism business. My question is, has the Commission considered the impact of a regulatory scheme for short-term rentals on the availability of long-term affordable rental housing for county residents? Has that been considered? Has there been consideration given to any kind of a monitoring mechanism to understand the impact, as we're also dealing with a critical shortage of available affordable rental housing? And might consideration be given to implementing some kind of a check-back system so that if we're regulating short-term rentals, we're having, in the context of the bigger housing concerns, some ability to understand the impact on availability of long-term rentals?
Thank
Thanks
you
very much.
The county, along with the cities, we're engaged in going forward with a study. What that will reveal, we'll find out. But many people are making the equation, or between short-term and long-term rentals. We don't know that they're really equitable as to the problem. I don't know if that makes any sense. Is there someone else?
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
The Tillamook County Housing Study did look at the difference, the impact on short-term and long-term rentals. So if you're interested in data, the Tillamook County Study is a good place for you to check.
Thank you.
Sue Skinner, 511 Jerome, and I just wanted to comment on the man's discussion about how the evaluation system works on Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera. I have some experience with this, and if you don't give them a good review, they don't accept it, and they badger you until they you give them a good review, and that has to be at least 4 stars. Yeah, I've had several experiences with this, and they don't. There's no regulation. There needs to be regulation on short-term rentals, just like there is on hotels. Hotels don't get by with every 5-year inspections. That's ridiculous. If you've got somebody in a house, you're going to have to look at it before somebody else goes into it, because people trash houses. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? Is there a staff response?
No, I think they're good points. I do think the comprehensive housing study that we're going to look at will hopefully address kind of the bigger dynamics of what's going on in our housing market. And I suspect here, like Tillamook County, there have been homes that have been converted to vacation rentals because, it's good cash flow for people. So that is one of the things we'll look at. And, obviously we do feel that there's a need to do some inspection of these properties for health and safety purposes, and, I don't know if 5 years is the right number, but we're trying to strike a balance here between not being too intrusive, but, also providing, again, a basic assurance for someone if they come here and spend, $2 or $3 or $4 or $5,000 for a week to rent something that they don't have to worry about the health and safety of their family while they're doing it. And I think all these comments will be helpful for us to hopefully make this work in a way that everybody can be happy with.
Yes.
Chair, one thing I did want to point out in response to the gentleman's comments, there are very strong inspection requirements for hotels, bed and breakfasts, that sort of thing. And on long-term rentals, the landlord-tenant statutes have specific requirements for what the safety features of a long-term rental, regarding a smoke detector, electrical, that sort of thing. There are no regulations in place whatsoever statewide on a statutory basis for short-term rentals. And so it's the one area where people are renting that currently has no control.
So are these regulations that are being proposed, are they more in line with what a long-term renter would expect to find safety-wise? Or is it a hybrid in between the hotel industry and long-term renters?
It's definitely not near as stringent as what the hotel does. So, I'd say it's probably a bit of a hybrid, in terms of what we looked at. For instance, for parts of this, we did look at basic building code, basic building inspections. We looked at things like requirements for egress and ingress and fire extinguishers and, all of those things. And probably that's pretty similar, to what you would find in a standard building code. Other pieces of it may not. Again, this is a unique market, and we're trying to come up with something that addresses the unique aspects of this market.
Okay.
I have some comments to make if there's time here. I think that we do need to regulate short-term rentals. I have no doubt about that. However, I do have some questions about the ordinance as it's written. I've only had this for a week, but I have a number of questions, and I don't know if these can all be, I'm not sure what the process is. So I'll go ahead with some of my questions. The first comment I have is I think that 5 years in between is way too long of a period of time. Just way too long of a period of time. The other thing is, there's a great deal of money that is being made on these short-term rentals. These are businesses. There are businesses that are buying up these houses. These are run by businesses. They should be treated like a business. And so when you keep that in mind, how should we write this ordinance? I would like to have more time to look at this ordinance because I just think it needs more attention. Let's talk about the sewer system. Just the way it's written for myself, if we look at, I'm sorry, I have not had a chance to collate all these questions. I've had a busy week. So like under definitions, I would like to have definitions of the different types of the sewer. There's public sewer, there's a septic system, there's a cesspools, there's a holding tank, there's I think that's SINGed, pumping contract and alarm system. I'd like to have that in the definition. Also under the short-term rentals for the standards, and one rental is allowed per lot or parcel. There are 3 different types there's a caretaker residence, accessory dwelling unit, and a guest house, and that's not defined. I'd like to have that defined.
I agree with that.
I just would like to have a lot more time with this. I think this is important, and I think that we need to do it right. The maximum occupancy, that's calculated on the basis of 3 persons per sleeping area, plus 2 additional persons. And if this is taking place in a residential neighborhood, you're looking, if a house is large enough, I mean, you could have quite an influx of people there. Is there a limit to that? Do we need to look at zoning?
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I agree with you. I have a lot of questions as well. So I'm wondering.
I'd like to table it.
Yeah, the motion would be to table it then and consider it further and then bring it back up again.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a
And we do
motion
another
to table
first
it.
reading when you had what you wanted.
Yeah, I think, and while you and I may not agree, I see it from a different end.
That's fine.
But I would like to have more discussion about this.
Okay, I make a motion to table this ordinance till another time.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? So it
So
passes.
just for clarification purposes, would you like to have another work session on this?
Sure.
How would you like to? So we'll focus on the draft ordinance and focus a work session on what could be changed in there, or do we?
Right, and I had handed in to Heather, she had asked for some, from my comments from the last time, but I didn't hear back from you, so I don't know what you thought about that. And I'm happy to write up my concerns here, as I'm sure other people can write up their comments, and maybe we can put those together and talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly if you could get those to us ahead of time, and we could put a work session at an upcoming meeting, and we could focus, specifically on whatever those questions or issues are.
Okay, thank you.
That would be great.
Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to the business agenda. 4-H and Extension Special Service District intergovernmental agreement with OSU.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So the district is currently in an agreement with OSU to provide educational programs and information to residents of Clatsop County in relation to 4-H and extension services. And the IGA that's before you is to continue providing those services to the district for an additional 5 years. The revenues for the district are collected through property taxes, timber sales, and then miscellaneous grants. The only change in the existing agreement is the payment option of it. What we're proposing and what OSU has approved is currently we have budgeted for the 17-18 fiscal year $492,400. And the way that we want to pay that back to OSU is dividing that into 4 equal payments. And the first 3 quarters, it would be $123,100 paid each quarter in October, January, and April. And then the final payment that gets made would just be for the actual outstanding expenditures. Currently, we pay the 4 equal payments for all 4 quarters, and then they refund us. And it's just more accurate accounting and stuff, so OSU has agreed to that, and so that's the only change to this agreement. And if there are any overpayments, then OSU will promptly pay us back as they have been. So.
Okay.
Because they're good people.
Yeah. So we have 3 options to consider, and do we have a motion?
Staff recommends that the board, acting as the governing body of the Clatsop 4-H and Extension Special Service District, approve the intergovernmental agreement and authorize the county manager to sign the agreement and any amendments.
Lisa, would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, Commissioner Clement, that's your liaison. It's on page 100.
For some reason, I don't have that page.
Here.
Here, it's right here. Here's.
Or here it is, right here. You got it?
I move that the board, acting as the governing body of the Clatsop County 4-H and Extension Service Special District, approve the intergovernmental agreement and authorize the county manager to sign the agreement and any amendments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say what a pleasure it is to work with you, Valerie and Patrick. Thanks.
And what a pleasure it's been working with Monica on some kind of language stuff that has to work out. Institutional ear meshing.
Yeah,
Always a good thing.
makes it run smoothly. Okay, and now we have professional services agreement with Community Action Team, Inc.
Good evening. I am here to seek approval for the professional services agreement with Community Action Team Incorporated to provide parenting education programming in Columbia County. This is through our grant that the Clatsop Juvenile Department provides fiscal management for from the Oregon Parenting Education Collaborative. And Community Action Team is our contractee agency in Columbia County to provide parenting education services there.
So, Madam Chair, I would announce that I'm a member of the Community Action Team Board, but I have no financial interest. There's no conflict, and I'm happy that Kat's working with Clatsop County.
Parenting education is near and dear to my heart. it helped me raise my children. I took advantage of every class that I could find.
Great.
So we have options to consider. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the professional services agreement with Community Action Team, Inc. to provide parenting education programming in Columbia County.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And now we have, let's see, professional services agreement with Tillamook Family Counseling Center. Oh, you're still here. Yes, that would be you. Okay.
So I'm here to seek approval for the professional services agreement with Tillamook Family Counseling Center to provide parenting education programming in Tillamook County for the same reasons.
I don't have any conflicts with Tillamook County, potential or otherwise. So, Madam Chair, I'd move to approve the professional services agreement with Tillamook Family Counseling Center to provide parenting education programming in Tillamook County.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? So
Thank
moved.
you.
Thank you. Commissioners' reports. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you. I have a letter from NACO. I've been nominated as a member of the Community Economic and Workforce Development Policy Steering Committee, and I'm also on the Resilience Subcommittee for NACO, so I try and make those meetings when I can. I did go to the Oregon Emergency Managers Association conference in Eugene. They're very interested in, number one, emphasizing the role of the economic vitality of an area as being the baseline for resilience in catastrophic events. So it's gone beyond just command and control in emergency situations to looking at the economic vitality of various businesses and how to assure that going forward. That's number one. They're also interested in working with elected public officials. It's one of the 3 priorities of their executive committee, is to work with more elected officials. I was the only one at this conference, but they want to have more of us come later. Also, the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries came, and they want to work more with elected public officials. So we're being asked to enter in more in the area of resilience as elected public officials. We've had wildland fires, and so when I looked at the Daily Astorian, when we look at forest management and how it impacts wildland fires, how do we use our forestry better and cross-laminated timber? I'm working with the Oregon Wood Products Working Group, which is a bunch of state agency folks. The governor's staffer, Jason Lewis Berry, is working on that. The Tallwood Institute, so we got all kinds of folks, OFRI, all working together to look at how we move forward with building housing, with using timber better. And so there was an opportunity for an online course that the Tallwood Institute is developing through OSU, as a matter of fact. And I got the link and I sent it to Kevin Leahy, and he sent it to Chris Breitmeyer at the college. So we're looking at how we can involve ourselves in Clatsop County, because wouldn't that just be swell if we could have people here who knew how to work with that and could get certified in that? That would be great. I've got press releases from OSU that talk about the use of structural wood in commercial buildings and how it's a great idea. AOC is now more interested in this. Susan Morgan's talking. She came onto the call as well, looking at supply chain issues and how do we have economic vitality around Oregon, including rural Oregon, because it does take housing, it does take ecologically sustainable economic development, and it does take resilience for that to happen. If anybody's interested, I have the program here from that conference. Cedar had the Cedar board meeting yesterday, and one of the things that we had the the statewide director, Mark Gregory, come and talk. And I listened to Jim Knight from the port. Right now, they have 2,500 passengers per ship and 24 cruise ships per year. That's right now in Astoria. In 2019 to 20, they're looking at a doubling of that. That's 5,000 people, which makes a difference in businesses. But they're talking about, oh, we need 40 buses to move them down to Seaside and Cannon Beach. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but when I drive down to Seaside and Cannon Beach in the summertime, having more buses on the road isn't going to help the fact that the road is overwhelmed. So that points to ODOT. I'm sorry?
I believe they come from my schedule, May and September.
Well, what they're looking at...
Spring and the fall, yeah.
Yeah, but they're building May to September, but now they're looking at October, and they're looking at cruise ships coming more than once a season. So they're looking at a huge expansion, and Jim Knight is looking at how to... And they're bigger, so he's looking at getting money to build up the area so around the port. I mean, it's huge for not only for Astoria, but for everybody up and down the road. So that's coming. ODOT had an open house. They're going to put new lights in the Arch Cape Tunnel. They're going to start it next April and go through June. They're going to do it at night because it's in a tunnel and it's dark anyway. They're going to use modern technology with LED lights and timers and all kinds of just really wonderful stuff like that. Finally, I still keep wanting to plan. I think if we plan, we'll find where our common ground is. And I'm going to pass out a board statement that I read into the record on June 24th, 2015, where I said, you know, I really want to have us plan together. I want a work session. So I want to keep talking about that because I'd like to have work sessions not only on short-term rentals. I'd like to have work sessions to develop collaboration with us about our intended outcomes. I also want to talk about accountability as a tool, not a weapon, communication based on affection, respect, and empowerment based on appropriate rules, roles, and responsibility. It's testimony I gave to the Board of Forestry. I think I read it into the record, but my memory falters sometimes, so I'm not sure about that. That's it for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you. So on September 18th, I went to the governor's mansion. She had a reception and celebration of women, and it was a unique experience for me in that the house was, I'm not very good at counting people, but they were all women, and they were all women in leadership roles, and I realized, as old as I am, I haven't been in a situation where there were all women there, that were all leadership, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty overwhelming too because I didn't know anybody, and then I saw someone from County College, and then I saw a couple other people from County College, and so that was really neat to see someone. Oh, and then I had somebody to talk to. So, and then on the 21st to the 23rd, I went to County College, which is our last event for this year, and it was held in Salem. And it was very interesting, and I think one of the things when I look back at County College that was beneficial for me was just getting together with other newly elected county commissioners who are learning it just like I am, and to have the support with them, and that's been very valuable to me, and to establish friendships with them. We had a leadership on the last day. We had a gentleman, David Rabiner, who did an excellent job, and I would like us to possibly explore having him come and do something with all of us, because I would like all of us to improve our communication and sense of that we're all colleagues doing the same good work for our citizens. And so I think he did an excellent job, and I would recommend him in the future for something that maybe we might want to think about. Another thing out of County College is Jim Doherty of Morrow County has announced that he's going to run for the second vice chair for the AOC this November. And Alex Tardif is going to run he's from Columbia County, and he's going to run for the treasurer for AOC. So I think the thing that's unique about this county college is that I think there's over 31 or something. We're the largest class of new county commissioners in the state, certainly since AOC has been doing these county college meetings. And so they have a lot of opportunity to have their voices heard, some new voices heard. And I certainly support Jim Doherty from Morrow County for the second vice chair, and for Alex Tardif from Columbia County for treasurer. So we can think about that when we go in November to the AOC conference. And I hope to run, of course, again, as a timber rep. I really have enjoyed that. Then on Monday, October 2nd, I'm going down to the Resilient Forestry Tour of the Corvallis Rock Creek Watershed is hosted by the city of Corvallis. As you know, watersheds are very important. I don't need to even go into it, but it's an opportunity that I was invited to go to, and so I'm going to take them up. They're taking buses, and I think they're inviting everyone, so I don't know if you all got invitations. You probably did, but they're taking buses from Portland, Eugene, and Salem to the watershed because there's limited parking there. So if I can get myself there early enough, I'll do that. And then on the Nehalem to Scenic Waterway program that we all had emails on, I personally would like to see this 16, 17 stretch of river get that designation. And I was hoping that perhaps, I had wanted this on the agenda, but it didn't make it on the agenda.
Well, if I could, we have someone from the state who's an expert on that project. Unfortunately, they could not get here until October 25th meeting. So I do have someone booked for October 25th. Now, I understand that that's after the close of the public comment period, but they've agreed to keep that open for the Clatsop County Commissioners until after that presentation. So you have a chance to hear that and make any comments that you might want to make on that proposal. So if that's acceptable, that's kind of what's scheduled. If you want to do something different, I probably need to let some folks know.
So they're extending the comment period?
For you only. Not for the public.
For Clatsop County, but...
just for the Clatsop County Commissioners, because they can't get here until October 25th.
I'm okay with that. How do the rest of the commissioners feel? That's good. Would that be all right? Okay, thank you. And then the Arch Cape ordinance that people spoke about today, and this may just, I know we do things normally a certain way, and I didn't think about it till afterwards, but I kind of feel bad that, they came all the way up from Arch Cape, and I know we extended the time, but since there was such a limited number of people, I kind of think in the future maybe we could be a little more open and let them finish that. And I would like for us to look at what their concerns are. I think that's something that I think would be good for us to address in whatever way that we're able to. I know that it has to be in line with what the procedures are, but it seems like a pretty big contrast to what they had been used to and what's now. So,
Commissioner Sullivan, I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I've wondered about this as well, business from the public, if it could be structured a little differently.
That's the commission's decision.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, as chair, the chair has some discretion, I think, to extend time. I think that typically, if there's no one waiting, the chair sometimes will say, sure, take a couple extra minutes. But that's entirely up to the board in terms of how you'd like to do that. You could extend that 3 minutes. I will tell you, 5 minutes is pretty common, 3 minutes is pretty tight. But that's a discussion for you to have as commissioners and decide what you want to do with that.
I think it would be good for us to discuss other aspects of that as well, business from the public. I would like to.
Yeah,
How
I
that
think
is
so too.
conducted and held.
And I'll confirm that Arch Cape is a long way from here.
Yeah, it's a long way, and to have
Right.
2 points to, I think that was, and then sometimes I would like to be able to ask the person some questions, and I know that that's getting trickier, but,
That's something I'd like to have us discuss as a commission.
so I don't know if that would be discussed under the rules, that I think would be okay to be open to talk about too. So is that something that we would do together as a body up here, or would we establish a work session?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a work session discussion. And I don't have the calendar in front of me. I know we already have a few work sessions coming up, and we just added 2 more tonight. So probably, I'm guessing, maybe each meeting between now and the end of the year will be preceded by a work session on one topic or another.
Okay. Then the Arch Cape, just as a question, is that something that I see that we have Chris here from the Planning Committee, Advisory Committee? Is that something that goes in front of the Planning Committee, or does it just go in front of the staff? Okay. And what about the ordinance that we tabled tonight? Does that go in front of the Planning Committee also?
It's not a
Commission?
planning ordinance
It's not
at
a
all.
planning ordinance.
It will not be in the planning code.
Okay.
It's a general health and safety ordinance. And the only reason planning has been the least bit involved is because they will be the ones collecting, they oversee the building official who does the inspections, and will be handling the administration, because CAM has decided that's the department that should do it. It could be A&T, it could be the assessor. The Arch Cape has currently very strong short-term rental ordinances in place, though most of their rules are focused on planning, the number of people, the number of days you stay, that sort of thing, as opposed to the safety issues. So what's envisioned is that the current ordinance would go into effect and then, but would exempt out Arch Cape to the extent that their rules currently control. And then they would go through a planning process as to whether there are going to be any planning type regulations changed, like the amount of time you can stay there and that sort of thing, as opposed to, are your electrical outlets safe? And then if there were other areas of the county that it was appropriate to restrict, each area may be different as far as the planning type of restrictions, how many people, the number of time, length of time you're there, that sort of thing. Those would be in the planning code, but the health and safety would be the general code of Clatsop County, so that if the building official goes in and says your electrical outlets are unsafe, they don't have the right to appeal to LUBA. And then appeal to this Court of Appeals, and then back to LUBA. They get a citation, they go to court, and the judge says pay.
I guess I was just thinking that there's a lot of expertise and interest on the Planning Commission that, and since this is such an important and pretty encompassing change, I would be interested, personally, I'd be interested in what their input is on that. But it doesn't mean we have to leave them as, the point person for that.
Yeah, we've had them before.
Okay. And then, thank you, Chris. And then I guess the final thing tonight was, we talked about the budget at the last work session, and I still would like to get input from the budget the citizen advisory, the budget, I don't have these things in front of me.
Budget committee.
The budget committee, that was a tough one. So I would still like to get their input on how they felt about it, because it is, I think, it's important for their serving, and I'd like to know what their input was. And then also, I needed to, if you didn't see it in the paper, we lost one of our budget committee members, Jim Avery, of Cannon Beach, died last week. It was kind of sudden and rather shocking, and not that I knew him personally, but
I did.
I think it makes me sad that we lost him. So,
Yes.
yeah. And I appreciate the service that he gave us. So.
And the good humor and intelligence and all that. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Clement?
I just have three things. In anticipation of moving forward with the potential for money from the state for our local commercial fishermen, I met with Bruce Buckmaster and hoping to meet with Senator Johnson just to get a little bit of a perspective from them. Second thing, I noticed a sign. I run with 30 kids every day on Niagara to trails up on the Reservoir Road, and I noticed a sign, not when I was running, but when I was driving on Niagara just before the turn onto the dump road. And it's a sign for cars to slow down, and it's been there maybe a week. It tells your speed, and I don't know if we had anything to do with that, the county, but whoever decided to put that there, it's very helpful. Just prior to that, and I'm there every day, cars were just speeding down Williamsport, super fast. It goes, right out to 202. It's a really fast traveled road, and I noticed a huge difference this week. So I don't know if our county roads department had any input on that, but I don't know how or when it appeared, but it's wonderful. And the third thing is there in Tillamook County, during all of these fires, it's cross-country season right now in the heart of it, in the whole state. And every county, so many counties were affected by smoke, Scappoose, St. Helens, and none of our kids could run outside. We here at the middle school had to run indoors inside of the school here for smoke 3 days. So imagine what it was like just an hour north of us or, east of us. So, but recently, about a week, 2 ago, Patrick Zweifel from Tillamook, he owns the Hydrangea Ranch. It's his business. And he also runs the very famous Ultimate race there. It's known across the state. He closed down his business to hold an optional race for anyone affected by smoke. So thousands of kids came to race there because it was their only clean air in the whole state. So amazing generosity, amazing man always, but it just goes to show what kind of a person this is. So from our county to Tillamook County, they're very lucky to have him. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended the Arts Council of Clatsop County meeting, and they are preparing for the presentation by Randy Cohen, who's coming from Washington, D.C., representing the Arts and Economic Prosperity study that was conducted, and we learned that the arts, just in nonprofit, only nonprofit alone, brings in $13 million to the county. Kevin Leahy spoke of a multiplier. He said it's common to use a multiplier of, 5 to 7. So if you multiply 13 million times that number, that is really significant of what is coming into this county. Because as I said, it only counts the nonprofit. So when you add in for-profit, that changes it. And also 350 jobs in the nonprofit sector. So the council is looking at a place to hold the meeting, and they're a very frugal council. I want to tell you. They're looking for a free space, free anything that they can get. So I was able to secure one at the Royal Nebuchadnezzar Art Gallery. That's a possibility. And they have another one that was offered, so that's great. Also, I was concerned, I don't know if any of you ever go to the Arts and Movement Center, but there was a lot of talk about that being sold. I don't know if this is factual, but I was told that that indeed is not going to happen. So I think there's a lot of happy people. There's a lot of good things that go on there, bringing community together through dance and different classes, singles, couples, families. It's a very good thing. And October 20th, there's going to be a contra dance there. If you've never gone to one, go. They're really fun. It's live music, and again, it's singles, couples, families, children. And then they will have them every third Friday throughout the year. And that's it. County Manager?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I'm sorry, Commissioner Nebeker. This email that we got about apply today to the Creative Counties Placemaker Challenge, did you get that?
If I did, I didn't see
Team
it.
application deadline, October 13th. I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Counties with populations less than 250,000, I should say. It looked like something down your alley.
Yeah, forward it to me, thanks. County Manager?
So just a couple of things. I know we've talked about this before. I would hope at the next meeting, there's this fisheries transition money at the state, which we're working on bringing down here to Clatsop County. One of the things we have to do is appoint a 5-member committee to oversee that, and so that will be your appointment as commissioners. I believe we have 4 of those members identified at this point, and
what is it again?
This was some money that was budgeted a few years ago, I believe 2014, maybe 2015, and Lisa probably knows this issue better than I do, but there were some regulatory changes, and it was going to have some impact on how much fish people could get. Also, they might have to change equipment, so the state has provided some money to help with that, which nobody has used up to this point, but Commissioner Clement, this is your issue.
I know, and like I told at the last meeting, Chair Lee, that I would do it, and he said, well, maybe you shouldn't, because we want to make sure it works, and you're from a 4th-generation commercial gillnet fishing family. My brother is a full-time fisherman. My uncles are full-time fishermen. I mean, I don't know how on earth I would fudge their tax returns, but so I mean, I'm willing to do it, but I want to make sure that their best interest is involved. So that's a question I have for Senator Johnson, just because she's politically savvy like that. So
are you saying that they might think there's too much bias and they wouldn't listen to what you say? Or?
Yeah, I think
there's perhaps conflict of interest on the, but there's several conflicts of interest. If you're going to have, Steve Fick, then there's a conflict right there.
Yeah, and I think you and I talked about a little bit, just to back up, the legislation requires a county that's going to apply for this money to set up a 5-member committee. 2 of the members, have to be in the fishing industry. 2 of the members can't be in the fishing industry, and 1 of them has to be a commissioner. And so, again, I think we've got 3 or maybe 4 of these folks identified. We had a discussion about Commissioner Clement being the commissioner. But yes, I do think there would be the potential that certainly you might have to announce conflicts of interest.
They all know anyway.
You may have to recuse yourself if a family member or someone would come in and apply for money, but you don't even know for sure that that's going to happen at this point.
Right.
So, that's kind of where we are with that. And I have one other member I want to reach out to, but everyone I've talked to has said, sure, be happy to serve. And so we'll be bringing that back to you at the, I think it's October 11th, our next meeting. So
I'll know by then if it's right for me to do that. I'm definitely willing.
I certainly would feel more comfortable you being on that than me being on that.
Yes, so would I.
I don't know enough about that.
Seems like if you have exceptional knowledge of something that you would be a benefit, plus you're a commissioner, and you're not in the industry yourself.
But the conflict of it, I mean, because the other thing to do is to call the Ethics Commission and just be real clear, you know, because announcing is, if it's not direct, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, they all, it doesn't matter who's on that committee, they know who I am from so they'll know, but I mean, I'm definitely willing to talk about that.
Would they all have equal votes? Do you know?
Yeah.
Would it be possible to get another person on the committee that wasn't in the industry or not in the industry, then plus her?
We have to follow the statute.
Okay.
The statute says 5 members and doesn't tell you individually who they are, but who they have to represent. So I don't think we have the option of having 6 members or deviating from that very much. So anyway, so you should hear more about that at the next meeting, and hopefully once we get the committee appointed, you know, that sort of starts triggering a little bit more forward motion. Again, that money's been sitting there for a couple of years, and I think the state's still trying to figure out exactly how to even get it out here. I know I've been having discussions with them for probably 2 or 3 months about it, and I haven't heard anything definitive about exactly like how we apply for it and when it would be available to us, you know, so we still have to have those kind of discussions. But anyway, that's coming up. One other item I have, and this would have been a couple weeks ago, it was after our last meeting. I know that obviously our meetings get covered in the press, and I know that Commissioner Thompson had made some comments about staff concerns about county government and concerns with staff. That had heard from staff that there are concerns, and that these staff had indicated that they maybe were afraid to come forward with their concerns because of retaliation. You know, we have a pretty standard practice in the county is, you know, we follow up on all employee concerns. This one sort of came to us in a little bit different way than we might typically hear about it. So I did send a copy of that article to our insurance company. We have access to what are called pre-loss attorneys, and said, you know, what do you guys recommend? Is this the type of thing that, you know, we need to follow up on? And they said, yeah, you absolutely need to follow up on that. So it's a little bit vague to me about what the concerns are, but, and I was particularly concerned about anybody having any fear of retaliation. So, you know, I am recommending that I think we need to follow up on those concerns. I think that probably has to be someone outside of, you know, current county management, you know, presuming that maybe is where the fears of retaliation come from. So, you know, I'm recommending that you consider that maybe at the next meeting we have that as an agenda item to discuss how to follow up on that. You know, I'm also particularly concerned anytime that people are concerned about retaliation. I don't think anybody should ever have to worry about that. So, you know, I think as part of this, and this is your decision as commissioners, if you feel it's appropriate for me as county manager to step aside temporarily during the investigation, or frankly permanently, I think you need to know I'm willing to do that. And obviously that's your decision ultimately, you know, what you decide to do if you investigate and how you want to do the investigation. But I don't think it's the type of thing that we can afford not to follow up on as a county.
Thank you. So that'll be on at our next meeting. We'll make a decision on that. Okay. If there's nothing else, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.